You're here, which means that you've found Spirit Crumbs, leading you to your inner light worker. I will be sharing how these tiny little hints from the universe have led me to where I am today. I hope that by hearing my story and the stories of others, you'll pick up your own spirit crumbs along the way that will lead you to somewhere magical. Thanks for coming along for the journey. Let's see where it takes us.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Spirit Crumbs. I am your host, Andrea McCallum, and I am an artist and an intuitive energy curator. I know it's been a few weeks, but it's been a weird month so far. I ended up getting sick for almost 2 weeks after being away and house sitting for a week, and I just feel like I've been catching up and just getting done what I need to. And it just feels like the energy is shifting now and things are starting to move again, which is good. In today's episode, it's probably going to be a shorter one because I'm just talking about a few things that have sort of been tying together and leading me through with Spirit Crumbs in the last few weeks while I've had this time to slow down and reflect more. Maybe not coincidentally, it's also been Mercury retrograde. Venus went direct again last week, but it's been this whole interchange of different retrogrades. It's a retrograde season. As astrologers will tell you, this happens every year, and yet somehow, we find it shocking each time. But I feel like for me, with Mercury being in Virgo, which is one of Mercury's planets it rules. I feel like because though not Mercury, Virgo also rules over the body and there's a lot of health issues that come up with Virgo. I feel like this retrograde was sort of making me reset and look at my habits. And I was actually going into budgeting, and because I had time, it was not feeling the energy to do anything creative. So I was finding ways of using this mental energy that I had. And I feel like more than any retrograde I've experienced in the last recent memory, this one really did have me kind of analyzing more than usual. So that Virgo energy felt really heavy, but in a very positive way. And I found myself making plans and finding clarity and realizing what I want to move forward with and what I don't want to move forward with. I had, every time I had a question where it was like, you know what, maybe I need to bring in a little bit more income, then an opportunity would come up. And it's just been kind of a magical period at the same time as being very sick and not feeling the best in my body. It's just been this slowing down. So, one of the things I want to talk about that sort of started me thinking on this whole journey of being connected to the body in order to slow down and find clarity. And I was on a walk one day, and I believe this might have been part of the remote recharge summary for anybody who does the monthly energy sessions. But one of the little messages that sort of came to me when I was out was the fact that when it's August and you're walking outside, I feel like there's just this certain energy that you can feel or smell or just sense in the air when it's going to start getting colder. And sometimes you might start to think, okay, maybe I'm just imagining it because it's still fairly warm out. It's still sunny. And it's not until we start to have the visual cues that the seasons are changing that it really comes together, and it's all the pieces come together. And that's sort of how I feel about these retrograde seasons, Venus retrograde, especially because it was a solid chunk of time where we were really looking at our values, our relationships, money, finances, all of these things that tend to be very physical in nature, they're physical parts of our lives. And yes, there's a lot of emotion behind it, patterns and things that we have to move through. But the result of that is in the material world. And so I was thinking about this, how sometimes you can feel like something's a little bit off in your life or feel like maybe there's something coming, even in manifestation, sometimes you get that feeling like, I know it's close. And then it's just a matter of waiting for it to show up. And coincidentally or not, I feel like not, as we would usually agree. I think one of the walks I went, I think it was one of the walks I went on last week, I noticed that there are already probably like 3 or 4 trees that I walk by on my regular route that already have leaves that have changed color and are on the ground already. And it's early, like this was the first week of September. And that kind of made me think that at the same time, I've been feeling this feeling like there's manifestations close at the same time. And so I feel like the other side of this next week or so, maybe when Mercury goes direct again at the end of the week, but I feel like we're very close. And I was journaling about the things that I want to start seeing in reality now that I've made some decisions and found some clarity on things that are important to me. And I looked up the cards, as I often do, to see what I pulled for it in the cosmic energy report for Virgo season. And it turns out this week, right now, that we're starting, that we're in, is the Nine of Wands. And I love this because it's the exact card that would be reassurance for me in this moment, because I was starting to question whether I needed to maybe not do some of the things that I had started on, or I felt like, okay, nothing's coming of them yet. And then the energy started to shift. And the Nine of Wands talks about being a nine, it's close to completion. It's at the end of a cycle. And it's this really like last push, this final push before the thing comes in. It's the don't give up. It's right in front of you, like that thing where sometimes you are just about to be like, I quit. And then the thing comes through. That's the energy of this week. So for the last few days of Mercury retrograde, and with the new moon in Virgo being this week, we can set really strong intentions for what we want to see going forward. And then really put in that effort, whether it's mental effort of like finding the clarity or having conversations or physically doing things, whatever the case may be for what it is that's coming to mind for you. Because whatever you're thinking about is probably what you're meant to be working on this week. Um, but I do feel like this week is a turning point for many of us. And I'm really excited to see what's on the other side of it. And I hope that you'll share what comes up for you. But there's this softness that comes after that. So next week is, I believe, the Knight of Cups. And this is a card of like dreamy romance, it's emotions, it's hard on the sleeve. It can sometimes be like rose-colored glasses, but when it came through this time, often I have a skepticism with that comes with it. But this time when it came up, I was saying with Emily, it just feels like we're allowed to enjoy our lives. We're allowed to let the people around us love us. We're allowed to love ourselves and find joy in the simple pleasures in life. And I feel like that's what we're stepping into for a little period right now. I don't know what's going to come up for the Libra season cosmic energy report, but that really does feel like Libra season coming in a little bit early. And I feel like we could all use a bit of that energy. I feel like the energy that we've been going through with the Venus retrograde has been very intense. And personally, I've been really rethinking a lot of things because hope and trust and that leap of faith energy has been very strong coming through from spirit. But I don't know, there's this part of me that can never fully lean into it. However, what I realized is in order to be able to have that leap of faith and hold on to the hope, I also have to be okay with releasing whatever it is. And I think that was the key, was that I was still holding on. It's like I had a bungee cord still attached to the specifics of the outcome. Whereas when I can say, okay, yes, this is what I'm hoping for, this is what I'm calling in, I can see it, I can feel it. It's in, my meditations, it feels very present, but also everyone in this life and all the people and circumstances surrounding this happening have free will. So I also have to be okay with releasing it. So my perspective on taking the leap or having this trust and faith really shifted because I realized it was a two-sided thing. It wasn't just I'm going to have the hope and this is the thing that's going to happen. Yes, I do have a belief that things are going to turn out the way that I want them to, but it's the idea of being open to something different coming through. I don't think that we're really in a space or in an energy field of going backwards at this point. It doesn't feel like that to me. It just feels like the universe has some surprises up its sleeve. I don't know how many episodes it was ago, but I did an episode where I was talking about doing an Akashic Records reading, and I was just sitting and taking notes from Spirit and from the records. And they gave me this very clear insight that Spirit really wants to surprise us and make things better than we can imagine. And the example they gave was an engagement where, like, yes, maybe you've discussed marriage. You've said what kind of ring you like. You've said things you would like to see, but Spirit and whatever this outcome is for you, Spirit is going to align it in a way that is magical, where you're not going to know when it's going to happen. You don't know how big of a grand gesture you're going to have. You don't know if it's going to go a different direction to something that was even better that you couldn't have imagined. And that's the energy that I think comes up with this card, like this. Sorry, I'm looking at a card right now with this energy. What I was going to say is there's this card in the Wisdom of the Oracle deck that's called Come to the Edge. And it is 36. So it also kind of amounts to a 9 as well. And it's a woman on just a little floating cliff, basically. Like it's just a round stump that she's on. And she's dancing, and there's all these hearts coming from her and going over the edge. And to me, this is kind of the image that I have, where it's like, as much as we say that we're going to take a leap, if we're not willing to actually take a chance that it's not going to work out, it's always a 50-50, right? We just need to start moving forward. And sometimes it helps to move to a different area of life. So, for example, if you're calling in a specific job, or like there's a certain opportunity that you wanted, or if let's say you applied to a grad school and you're like waiting to hear back from it, and you kind of have all your eggs in one basket for that, but it's too much energy to put into that right now because it's just overwhelming. You could focus on your friendships or your health or something else and put your energy there. And then that gives space for it to come through. This energy right now that I'm feeling into, which is like why this is kind of going all over the place, is because I'm kind of feeling like there's another metaphor coming through. But the other thing that it's kind of a funny spirit crumb that started coming through. And like I've said in many episodes, when something comes through 3 times, I start to think, okay, what is the message here? And in 3 completely different contexts, the metaphor or the phrase of like tossing the first pancake has come up. And so the idea behind this is that like when you're making pancakes, the first one is really the test one to see how hot the griddle is, to see if it's to temperature, and usually it gets burnt. And that's okay. It's part of the process. It's not like you should stop making pancakes forever because the first one burnt, because you still have the rest of the batter and everyone enjoys all of the rest of them. And usually people will still eat that one anyways, even if it's the one that you're not the most proud of. But that concept, the more I started sitting with it, so I heard it on on Gilmore Girls, which I was watching. And I heard it on TikTok. Someone said it. And then I believe Danielle said it in a lesson at some point. And I was just like, this is so interesting because they're completely different sources. But for it to come through all at once, feel like it has to be a message for me. And what I realized was I've had all my energy on specific situations that I've been pondering. But really, I want to be spending my energy on making art and having a lot so that I can sell it in my shop and be able to do markets when I feel like it and to have stuff for the show that I'm doing with Abby in November. With all these things coming up, I was like, well, that's the one thing I'm not doing. It's the one thing I'm not putting any effort into. And so now I'm kind of making this pivot where I feel pretty comfortable and it's not like I was quote unquote like wasting time. I actually did a lot of shuffling around. Like I said, I did some budgeting. I looked at the offerings that I have. I got really inspired by a few new ones that I'm doing. And like all of that feels pretty stable now. And so it feels like, okay, I've gotten rid of all of the, not gotten rid of, but I've sorted out all the things that take up mental space so that now I feel like all of my energy can go into creative things. Because sometimes if I have things that are nagging at me, it just makes it really hard, obviously, to feel creative. So by doing that, I feel like I can move forward. But the first pancake comes in, and the fact that I have this habit, this pattern of being like, I need to come up with the best idea before I can just do it. I need to know exactly what I want to do on whatever plate I'm carving or whatever it is. So, whatever my starting point is for the next project, I'm like, I have to know exactly what I want to do. I have to have a plan. I don't want to waste materials. But in reality, I know that's my habit. And I actually, to correct that or to offset that, I bought a whole bunch of the rubber plates that I've been working with, the lino blocks, because I know that's my habit. And so I was like, even if I do one and I hate it, I can toss it and it's not the end of the world. And so that was kind of the message from spirit that I got from that was that it's like almost a literal thing for me. It's not pancakes, but it's literally like even if you make something and you hate it, you just make another one. And it's part of the process. You have to make some bad things before you're going to get to the good things. And I think that's where taking a leap, like that come to the edge and like the take a leap and the willingness to say, okay, I'm going to detach from the outcome because I can't possibly know if it's going to work or not. It comes through in so many ways. Like there's, like I said, the tangible thing of like, maybe I'm not going to like this print that I make. There's, if it's a relationship, like it may not work out or the person may not feel the same way and they have free will. They may decide they don't want to go that route, but then that opens up this space still. It still releases that thing that's like holding you back and makes space for the next thing. And I would never refer to a person or a relationship as a pancake that you're tossing, but it's just the idea that like it helps with the forward movement of like the more things you know are not for you, the closer you get to finding out what is. And that was just sort of the main thing that came up for me in the last few weeks, the main spirit crumb. I feel like I've been very foggy because I've been sick, which you can probably hear my voice off and on. I haven't been talking a lot on purpose, but it also makes me very groggy sounding. So that was kind of the main message is that this week is going to be this last push to actually zero in on that thing that you really want to see yourself complete by the end of the month and start putting energy there. Anything you've recently gotten clarity around, put your energy into taking the next steps on it. And then this week, with it being the new moon in Virgo, I really feel like this is a big moment to set intentions because I don't know. You'll have to listen to astrologers to correct me on this if I'm wrong. But for me, I just personally feel like because what I've heard over time of people talking about eclipse season, which is coming up next month, it's not the best time. It's kind of a chaotic, intense energy. It's not the best time for setting intentions. You still can. You can set intentions anytime you want. But for me, it just feels like I want to know what I want to see on the other side of the eclipse season. I want to know what I want now so that that come to the edge, that jump off the cliff, that leap that I'm taking, whatever quantum leap the universe hasn't planned for me, I can use that momentum of eclipse season to get there. And I just want to be clear on what needs to go before then and what my best case scenario would be, my dream life, if you will. I've been talking about that for about a month. And it's just, I feel like the reason I want to get this episode out there this week is because I just feel like it's going to be really potent. It's actually like almost midnight my time right now when I'm recording, but I just felt like I needed to get this message out there. And I also wanted to talk about an offering that I have on the 20th. I'm going to be doing a Zoom live group reading. And I'm really excited about it because even in other readings, a lot of like dream life stuff or patterns and all this like really intense and high vibrational energy has been coming through. And I feel like because I could see some similarities in a lot of the dream life readings I've been doing, I do feel like having a group session at this particular moment after Mercury retrograde is over and it's like going direct again. I feel like it's going to be such a good time to really gather as a group. And I'm going to pull cards for the group as a whole. And then I'll see how it goes to move through some of the people that are live to do individual readings. And I am going to do a replay of it. So even if you're not able to make it live to the session, you'll still receive the replay. And I feel like anybody who feels like that is aligned for them will probably get a lot of messages from the group part and even the people who are called to join. Because like I said, a lot of the people that have been drawn to get readings through me lately have had very similar patterns and messages and exciting things coming up. So I just feel like it's going to be a really powerful session. I'm doing it in the evening EST. I believe it's at 8 p.m. EST, 5 p.m. PST. And yeah, I'm just really excited about that. It's something that I may do more regularly if it feels like something that people are excited about. Had I think a couple people already signed up, but the link will be in the show notes and in my bio on Instagram on Concrete and Crystals and Spirit Crumbs. It's going to be a fun couple of weeks for episodes because I will have an episode with Danielle Sarank, Squamish Medium on Instagram coming up. I have one with Emily, of course, coming up for the Libra season Cosmic Energy Report. You can check out Emily and her stars to see what Emily has been talking about on things that make you go woo as well. But I am really excited. I feel like the ball's moving again with the podcast. I took a few weeks off and now I feel like there's a lot of clarity coming around that. And I hope that you're experiencing that too. So please feel free to let me know what is coming up for you, what your final push is going to be, what your intentions are going to be for the new moon this week. And I will see you in the next episode.
Thank you so much for joining me on another episode of Spirit Crumbs. You can find me on Instagram for this podcast at Spirit Crumbs, or you can also find me at Concrete and Crystals for my own spiritual offerings and more tidbits about my own journey. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.